Peace, family. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but you know what I'm saying? I want to say I appreciate all y'all. Y'all done helped me get over 600. I'm almost at that 700 mark. You know what I'm saying? So keep subscribing, keep watching the platform. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. To all my returners, I truly, truly, truly appreciate all the support that y'all have given me. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, this is the Helping Our People Elevate YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying? We have our study sessions every second and fourth Thursday of the month. You know what I'm saying? And so if you have or you haven't been to those, like I say, check them out. Again, thank y'all. So without holding y'all, we're gonna talk about how the indigenous Moors, so-called Blacks, Negro, colored African American people, lost their land here in the U.S., so-called the North America, United States. And so without holding y'all, we're gonna jump straight into it. Peace and love, family.
On behalf of Akuno Senko for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope. H-O-P-E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know. Every day, one step at a time, man. We gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate and seeking knowledge, make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
Now, like I said, without holding y'all, we're gonna talk about the Code Noir, the Allotment Acts, Europeans classified as $5 Indians, the Oklahoma Land Rush, and in total, how did the indigenous people or the Moors of the Americas lose their land, resources, and identity? Moors, Aragon, the Castile, and Spain. The kingdom of Granada falls to the Christian forces of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and the Moors lose their last foothold of Spain. And so as you see on the first image is a coat of arms of the Aragons of Spain. And these were Moors of Spain. And you see on the bottom of the image, you see the dark complexion. Well, the coat of arms represents a person's hierarchy, their position, their royal ancestry, their lineage, their power, their position, who they are. And in the middle, you see a map of the Castile, of the location of the Aragon in Muslim Spain. And to the right, you see the Moor on his horse. And remember his attire. We're going to touch on that later on. Located at the confluence of Douro and Genal rivers in southern Spain, the city of Granada was a Moorish fortress that rose to prominence during the reign of the Sultan of Almoravid in the 11th century. In 1238, the Christian Reconquista forced Spanish Muslims south, and the Kingdom of Granada was established as the last refuge of the Moorish civilization. Granada flourished culturally and economically for the next 200 years, but in the late 15th century, eternal feuds and a strengthened Spanish monarchy under Ferdinand and Isabella signaled the end of the Moorish civilization in Spain. On January 2nd, 1492, King Boabdil surrendered Granada to the Spanish forces, and in 1502, the Spanish crown ordered all Muslims forcibly converted to Christianity, which they were classified as Moros. Moros is a term that was used for the Moors who were converted over to Christianity, who were forced into Christianity. The next century saw a number of persecutions, and in 1609, the last Moors still adhering to Islam were expelled from Spain. And the reason why I'm going over this is because this is going to lead up into the topic of discussion for tonight's session. The Treaty of Granada of November 25th, 1491. The Treaty of Granada was signed on November 25th, 1491 by Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon, the Catholic monarchs, and Emir Muhammad XII, the last Muslim ruler of Spain. The treaty outlined the conditions for the surrender of Granada, which marked the end of the Reconquista, a period of about 780 years when Christian kingdoms gradually took territory from Muslim rulers in the Iberian Peninsula. Now, these images that you see are from a festival that they have in Spain every year called Moros y Cristianos, which translates to Moors and Christians. Or is the food that they have, what we have in the U.S., red beans and rice. And that's a delicacy in Spain for the Moros and Cristianos. But as you see them wearing the fake plastic animal skull and long black feathers in their hairdress, holding a spear, looks like he's going to war for an African tribe. And so you see them mocking our image, our culture. And I'm gonna go deeper into that. That's why I say remember that image in the last slide. Because you see them dressed like the Moors. You see them in Moorish garbs, Moorish attire, mocking the war. As you see in these images, these are more images of Europeans mocking the Moors. From top left to right, you have the minstrel acts that they perform in the United States, where Europeans will paint their face black and mock the so-called Negro or the so-called black man, which Negro is Spanish for black, so it's the same word. On the left, you see in Spain, the festival. You see the Moorish garbs, the Moorish attire. They're having a festival dressed like Moors, mocking the defeat of the Moors or the so-called blacks. And on the right is a picture from Europe where you see the Europeans with the minstrel faces with the Moorish fezzes on their head, also mocking the defeat of the Moors. And so this is an image of America, Spain, and Europe mocking and mimicking the Moors, so-called black people. The Moros y Cristianos, Spanish for Moors and Christians, which celebrates the Reconquista of the Iberia by Christian armies over Moorish forces more than 500 years ago. As I said, look at the garbs in the image. Look at the attire. You see the Moors with the fezzes on. You see the Moors with the hajjids on. Look at the way they're dressed. Look at the way these people were dressed. So you see them mocking the Moors. The Crusades against the Moors. The Reconquista, or Iberian Crusades, were a military campaign that took place between the 11th and 13th centuries to liberate the Iberian Peninsula from the Muslim Moors. The Moors had civilized the region in the 8th century after defeating the Visigoths. The Reconquista began as a political expansion, but the Pope supported some campaigns in the 11th century. And so the Pope took place in this. And Christian knights from across Europe joined the effort. The campaigns were successful, and by the end of the 13th century, only Granada remained in Muslim hands. The final conquest of Granada in 1492 marked the end of the Reconquista and united almost the entire Iberian Peninsula under Spanish rule. And so going into my presentation, and if you've been following my series, we're on part 8. I'll have part 9 coming up here real soon. But the fathers of the modern race paradigm. And so these are the fathers of the reclassification, the relabeling, the stripping of the birthrights, land rights, inheritance. These were the fathers that were supporters that helped push this. They weren't by themselves, but these are the originators. The craniologist Francis Bernard, who wrote the book New Division of the Earth in 1684. The naturalist Carlos Linnaeus, who wrote the book Systemae Naturae in 1758. And then you have the anthropologist Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, who associated the term white with Caucasians in 1793 to 1795. What was America like before the conquest of colonization? What was the Americas like before the colonization and the conquesting of European settlers, European invaders, so-called white people? As you see, this is a map of the 1500s on the left side. And you see the Americas, and you see the images of the people. Go back again, 1684, 1700. This is 1700s with the reconstruction of the Americas. And so you see before what the people look like. And as I say all the time, they had paint and colors way back then. And so if these people were of pale complexion as the people we see today, then why doesn't their skin look like that same pale complexion? Again, the Americas before conquest and colonization. They had paint back then. As you see, there's different colors inside the garbs, their attire. You see the various colors, the various shades. So why did they paint their skin tones dark if these are not what the people look like in those times? We all know the European wanted gold. So when you look at the fifth image to the right, you see the big gold chain on the brother, look like Flavor Flav. You see that our ancestors had wealth. They were educated. But let's talk about how Christianity was introduced to the Americas with the arrival of European explorers and settlers. The exact time it varies depending on the region. And so they came in different time frames. Again, like I said, 16, 17, 18, 16, 1700s with the reclassification, but they were already here. Well, they came 1492, 15th century, 16th century, 17, 18 to now. But starting with North America, Christianity arrived with the Spanish and French explorers and settlers in the 16th century. Spanish missionaries played a significant role in spreading Christianity among Native American populations and now what is known as the United States and Mexico. And if you watch my American Indian Wars video, I went over plenty of the wars that detailed that. Many of the wars, the Pequot Wars, the Apache, the Seminole, the Yamasee, plenty of wars. All these were Moorish tribes. All these were Moors that they were going to war with. Central America and the Caribbeans, the Spanish conquistadors brought Christianity to these regions in the early 16th century. They established missions and converted indigenous populations to Christianity. So as I said, the father of the modern race paradigm, what was the Americas like before European conquest? South America, Christianity arrived in South America almost in the early 16th century with the Spanish and Portuguese conquest. The Catholic Church played a central role in the colonization and conversion of indigenous people. That's why a lot of our people in South America, a lot of our Latino family are Catholic because of the Spanish and Portuguese conquest. The Catholic Church played a central role in the colonization and conversion. Now, let's talk about, we have New Mexico and you have Old Mexico. And so I always ask people, where was Old Mexico? Just like you got New York, which was named after the Duke of York, but you have New Hampshire, New Jersey, all these towns with New England, all these places with new in it. So where's the old? And so let's talk about the cities in North America with the Spanish names. As you see on these maps, these are old maps. The one on the left is 1500s, the one on the right is 1700s. But you see Old Mexico from California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico to Texas. Old Mexico. Let's talk about some of those names. Los Angeles, which means the angels. San Francisco, St. Francis. These were all named after the Spanish, not the Mexicans, but the Spanish that came and conquered that region. San Diego, St. Ducas, San Jose, St. Joseph, Santa Barbara, Sacramento, Fresno, Ash Tree, San Bernardino, St. Bardine, Santa Monica, St. Monica, San Luis Obispo, St. Louis the Bishop. And so all these are places in California that are named after the Spanish conquerors. Let's go to Arizona, San Luis, St. Louis, Sierra Vista, Mountain View, Nogales, Walnut, Yuma, derived from the Yuma Native American tribe, but has a Spanish influence. And showing you the influence the Spanish had on those people in these areas. New Mexico, Santa Fe, Holy Faith, Las Cruces, the Cross, Albuquerque, named after the Spanish Duke of Albuquerque, Los Alamos, the Cottonwoods. As they say, Tejas or Texas, El Paso, the Paz, San Antonio, St. Anthony, Amarillo, yellow, of course we know that, y'all should know that, Amarillo, Texas. Laredo, named after a city in Spain. Del Rio, of the river. So those are just a few of the various places that we're gonna talk about. We're gonna keep going. But for the Spanish, the first arrival was led by Christopher Columbus in 1492. Subsequent explorers and conquistadors such as Hernan Cortez in Mexico and Francisco Pizarro in Peru led further expeditions and conquests. And so as you see from left to right, you see Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortez, and Francisco Pizarro. These were their images back then. This is what they look like. The Spanish conquest of Central America was led primarily by Hernan Cortez. Cortez is most famously known for his conquest of the Aztec Empire in Mexico, which is in North America, but with significant historical connections to Central America due to its cultural and political influences in the region. And so he had a big impact on North and Central America with him taking over the Aztec Empire. In 1519, Hernan Cortez led an expedition from Cuba to the Yucatan Peninsula and eventually into the heart of the Aztec Empire, which was centered around the present-day Mexico City. His conquest of the Aztec people from 1519 to 1521 was a pivotal event in the history of Central America, as it marked the beginning of Spanish colonization and the eventual incorporation of much of the Central America into the Spanish Empire. And so the term Spanish comes from Spanish, because you have a bit of Spain in you, so you're Spanish from the conquest and colonization. Talk about the Louisiana Purchase. Now, growing up, I always thought the Louisiana Purchase was just somebody purchased the state of Louisiana, not knowing that it was actually 15 states that were purchased. And then I would ask, how was it purchased, or who purchased it? Well, as you see in the image, the man above the map, that is King Louis XIV. King Louis Vuitton. That's King Louis XIV. And those 15 states were Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Minnesota, Louisiana, South Dakota, North Dakota, New Mexico, Texas, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. These were all part of the Louisiana Purchase. French explorations and settlements in the continent. And so these were places that French named, or French had a part of their naming in. Louisiana, as I just said, named after King Louis of France. St. Louis, named after King Louis of France. New Orleans, Louisiana, named after the Duke of Orleans, who ruled the recent region of Louis. Des Moines, Iowa, named after the French term Rivière des Monts, River of the Monks. Detroit, Michigan, named after the French word Detroit, meaning straight. Bellevue, Nebraska, meaning beautiful view in French. Boise, Idaho, derived from the French word bois, meaning wooded. Duluth, Minnesota, named after the French explorer Daniel Greysolon sur Duluth, however you say that. Montreal, Quebec, from the Mont Royal, meaning Royal Mountain. Quebec City, Quebec, from the Algonquin word Quebec, meaning where the river narrow, with French settlers establishing the name. For the French, the first significant exploration and colonization efforts in the Americas were led by Jacques Cartier, who explored the St. Lawrence River and part of Canada in the early 16th century. Later on, Samuel de Champlain played a crucial role in founding Quebec City and establishing French colonies in Canada. And so each one of these figures played a significant role in the initial contacts, and colonization efforts in their respective countries and in the Americas. Each one of these figures played a significant role in initial contact and colonization efforts. So again, these faces, these images that I'm showing you are the first colonizers, the first settlers to come over and strip the people of their birthrights, their inheritance, their land rights. These were people that the ancient people went to war with. They fought against. And remember, the European had the gun. The indigenous people had bows, arrows, spears. The arrival of Spanish and the Portuguese Christians, particularly under the auspices of the Catholic Church in South America, was led by several key figures. The Spanish conquistadors and missionaries, Conquistadors such as Francisco Pizarro in Peru and Pedro de Valdivia in Chile played a significant role in the initial Spanish conquest and colonization efforts in South America. Alongside them, Catholic missionaries like Bartolomé de la Casa and others accompanied expeditions and evangelized to convert indigenous people to Christianity. Portuguese colonizers and Jesuit missions. In Brazil, Portuguese explorers and colonizers, notably Pedro Alvarez Cabral, established the initial settlement. The Jesuits' order, particularly prominent in Brazil and Paraguay, playing a crucial role in Christianizing indigenous populations through their missions, notably led by figures such as Jose de Anchieta. Before the Spanish, French, and British conquest in the Americas, the reign was characterized by diverse and complex societies with high, rich cultural, political, and economic systems. So they already had a rich culture, political, they had politics, and they had an economic system before Europeans came. They had a rich culture, they had politics, and an economic system before Europeans came. But if you read the Europeans' writings, they try to say the indigenous people were uncivilized, they were naked, they ran around, and they didn't know nothing, they were just dumb. But you had indigenous civilizations. The Americas were home to advanced civilizations such as the Aztecs, the Mayas, and Incas, as well as numerous other indigenous groups with sophisticated agricultural practices. They had their own cities and complex social structures. They had cultural diversities. There was an immense cultural diversity among indigenous people with a wide range of languages, belief systems, artistic traditions. They had their own languages, belief systems, and artistic traditions. So again, like I asked earlier, if they had art back then, they had different colors. If they look like the people that we see today, then why didn't they paint themselves like that? But each group had its own distinct cultural practices and societal norms. Political organization, indigenous societies range from centralized empires like the Aztecs and Incas, which controlled vast territories throughout elaborated administrative systems, to decentralized tribes and chiefdoms and governed smaller regions. They had, like I said, it's political organizations, so they had their own politics. Economic systems. Agriculture was central to many societies. Agriculture was central to many societies, with crops like maize, potatoes, and beans being cultivated extensively. Trade networks existed. So they lived by the border system, they lived by the trade system, facilitating the exchange of goods such as textiles, ceramics, and precious metals across the continent. They had their own religious beliefs. Religion played a significant role in the daily life with complex belief systems involving polytheism, animism, and ceremonial practices that were often tied to a natural phenomenon and agricultural cycle. And so they connected with nature. They were in tune with the universe. They had their own ceremonial practices. Technology and artistical achievements. Indigenous people developed sophisticated technologies such as irrigation systems, terraced agriculture, and architectural feats like pyramids and cities. Artistic expressions included intricate pottery, textiles, sculptures, and murals. And so you see they had, we see the the pottery, the textile, the sculptures, we see the murals, and you see the dark images, you see the different colors, the various technologies they had, the various sciences that they used, the methods, the culture that existed before European colonization, before conquest, before Europeans got here. Social structures. Society's hierarchies varied widely from rigidly stratified societies with nobility and commoners to more egalitarian communities. Gender roles were diverse, with women often playing important economic and cultural roles. I'm gonna read it again. Gender roles were diverse, with women often playing important economic and cultural roles. So overall, the Americas before European conquest were characterized by thriving civilizations with their own histories, traditions, and achievements. The arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century would drastically alter the societies through colonization, disease, and cultural exchange, reshaping the course of history in the Americas. But they don't talk about that. They want us to remember 9/11, but they don't talk about the massacres and the slaughter of the indigenous people and forcing them into slavery and then stripping them of their birthrights, their identity, their culture, their inheritance, and reclassifying them as Black, Negro, colored, African American, and then turning around and giving themselves $5 Indian status. We're gonna go into that as well. But the war between indigenous people in the Americas and the Spanish, French, and British colonizers spanned several centuries, beginning with the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492. These conflicts continued throughout the period of European colonization, which lasted into the 19th century in some regions. The conflict between indigenous people in the Americas and European colonizers lasted for several centuries. They began in the late 15th century with the initial encounters and continued well into the 19th centuries, particularly in the area where European colonization and expansions were ongoing. Therefore, these conflicts spanned roughly 4 to 5 centuries, depending on the specific region and context. And so, as I did in my Father of the Modern Race Paradigm, I went into this book by the author Alexander von Wuthenau, but it's called Unexpected Faces in Ancient America. And he goes back to the 1500 BC to AD 1500s. And so again, before conquest, before colonization, before the arrival of Europeans. And as you see in this book, and I want to show y'all in the top image on the left, if you can see the brother's hair, there was a locks hanging in the back of the brother's hair. And I'm gonna show you a color image of that as well, later on, just like the picture on the bottom. The sculpture on the left side, those are locks in their hair. This is also from their book, Unexpected Faces in America. And you see the spirits of the ancient. Now, throughout history, they would always mark our hair, our noses, and our lips. But as you see, they steal and mock our hair, our culture, and our noses and our lips. If you look at these sculptures, you see Queen Tao on the bottom with an afro. You see the thick lips on the sculptures. You see the wide noses on the sculptures. Those can be the people claiming to be the people of the land today. As I show you more images, and these are European scholars who are honest enough to tell you the truth about what the people look like on the land when they came here. And so the image on the top, the gentleman that we see, that is the author of the book, Unexpected Faces in Ancient America. So he was honest enough to tell you the fact that, excuse me, that the archaeological pieces represented Negro or Negroid people who have been found, especially in archaeological or pre-classic sites. And so he was honest enough to say that these were so-called Black people. These were Moors. These are more images. Some of them are close-up of the images on the top. And so again, from 100 BC to 1000 BC. In Mexico, 400 BC, Mexico, Veracruz, Mexico. These were all sculptures found in different locations in Mexico. And the picture on the bottom, as you see, it says Florida Museums. So these are in the museum showing you that the people back then were of dark complexion. These are more sculptures. These are more sculptures. And so if these sculptures on the top, and if you look at the top or the bottom second row, first picture, you will see the locks, you will see the hair texture. Look at the hairstyle. Look at the big lips in the middle pictures. I mean, just look at all the lips. Look at the wide noses. They look nothing like the people on the bottom images. But you have all these people on social media, that's where these images come from. All these people on social media claiming to be the indigenous people. All these people on social media claiming to be Native Americans or the indigenous people, the Aboriginal people. This is social engineering. This is colonization and conquest. If you don't know who you are, then someone else can tell you who you are, and they can claim your land. They can come in your home and tell you that's their home. But you ain't claiming it, so they gonna claim it. Why don't they look like these statues? None of these images look like these statues. I'm gonna break this down into a part 2, but I really want to go into the American Indian War. I'm gonna break it down to a part 2. If you like this content, hit that like button. Make sure you leave a comment if you have anything you want to add on, anything you want to touch on. If you think I should do a part 2 to this, because I really want to go deeper into this, but I'm gonna save it for a part 2. So let me get at least I'm all I'm asking for is a small number. Let me get 100 views and at least 20 likes. And I'm gonna continue this and I'm gonna go deeper into it. But I really got more I want to go into, as you see. But I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna save it right here. You know what I'm saying? So let me know what y'all think, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the second part. Peace and love, family.